Good afternoon. To begin, I would also like to acknowledge and pay my respects to the traditional owners, past, present and future, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation. It is upon their ancestral lands that we meet today. And as we share our own knowledge, learnings and research, may we also pay respect to the knowledge embedded forever within the Aboriginal custodianship of country. Thank you to CEDA for having me here today, and thank you Michael, Phil, Lynn and Jan for joining me. It is fantastic to have you here, and I really look forward to hearing some more about your journey. The importance of our continued focus on gender equality was brought home to me recently, not by a woman, but by a man called Ethan. Ethan works at St Vincent's Hospital here in Sydney. And when he first walks into a treatment room, people naturally assume he's a doctor. But Ethan is a nurse, and he loves his job. Ethan was so keen on becoming a nurse that he achieved a diploma of nursing whilst he was still at school. He then went on and continued with his education and completed his bachelor's degree in nursing. Speaking about his career choice recently, Ethan said, "Men don't really pick a career traditionally providing for care. For some people, it's almost like a step down from their options." Across Australia, only 1 in 10 nurses are men. Nursing is one of the most female-dominated industries in our country. We need to change that. And not just because both men and women are missing out on fulfilling careers in non-traditional fields. And as someone who spent much of their working life in mining, I know how great a non-traditional field can be, but also because our economy needs to change. We have an ageing population. And it's estimated that by 2030, Australia will be short of nurses to the tune of 123,000. Recent job figures have shown that the human services sector is experiencing the greatest growth it's ever seen. And indeed, there are few others that are experiencing such significant growth. As our world becomes more connected and competitive, we need to support everyone in the workforce to meet the full potential regardless of their gender. Today, I'd like to present you with the Workplace Gender Equality Agency's scorecard for this year and provide you with an update on how New South Wales is going, but how Australia in general is tracking. I'd also like to offer a few thoughts on how we can drive change to create a more equal way to work. The most obvious symbol of lost potential in the workforce is the gender pay gap, the difference between the average full-time earnings of men and the average full-time earnings of women. Our data this year shows that full-time female workers in Australia in the last 12 months experienced a 23% pay gap based on total remuneration. This means that the average man earns $27,000 a year more than the average woman. Our data shows that pay gaps exist in every single sector in Australia, even the female-dominated ones. I know that discussion on gender pay gaps can cause controversy, and some people even wish to deny that the gender pay gap is real. And I understand some of this confusion. For most of Australia's industrial history, the causes of gender inequality were obvious. It used to be openly considered more important for men to work more and earn higher wages because of their accepted role as the family breadwinner. Then things changed. Equal pay for equal work came about in law during because of a series of decisions in the 1960s and 70s. Family structures became more diverse, and women decided that they wanted to pursue opportunities of professional life. Now we've reached a situation where gender inequality in the workplace is neither sanctioned by law nor accepted, but its causes and the inequity of outcomes persists. Work done recently by our agency and with the Diversity Council of Australia and KPMG into the causes of the gender pay gap identified bias and discrimination as the single biggest factor. Now, we all hold unconscious bias. I have unconscious bias. I know what they are. And it doesn't make me bad, it makes me normal. But I need to know what that unconscious bias is, so that in a workplace and in other situations, when I am confronted with something at which my bias might come to the fore, I can stop and think. I think the critical thing about unconscious bias is understanding them and then addressing them. The next biggest factor the KPMG report found that drives the gender pay gap was women's and men's concentration in separate industries and roles, industry segregation. We know that male-dominated industries and occupations attract higher wages than female-dominated industries and occupations, and I'll come back and talk to that a little bit more later. And although there are other influences, the third largest factor in causing the pay gap was time out of the workforce by women who still bear the burden of unpaid care. We know that for every hour that men spend in unpaid care, women spend an hour and 48 minutes. Women pay an economic price for that, often having to return to work after taking time to care in part-time roles that undervalue their skills and experience and often do not allow for career progression. The other problem women have is superannuation. Women retire on average with 50% less superannuation than men. And many women in retirement, sadly, in this very wealthy country of ours, live in poverty. So, while the gender pay gap is often explained as a woman's choice, most unfairly in my view, which would surprise you to learn, I'm sure, we as a society are still grappling with deep cultural norms about how women and men should work and how they should be valued for it. Our data this year also revealed something that I'm sure will be no surprise to any of you, and that is in 2016, your boss is far more likely to be a man than a woman. In fact, across Australia, 5 out of 6 CEOs are men. And just less than a quarter of all board directors are women. There's only one sector that has more females in management roles, and that's the healthcare and social assistance industry. And of course, it also happens to be female-dominated. However, despite this unacceptable status quo, there are positive signs, and the most significant of those is that the pipeline of women into leadership in Australia is strengthening. Over the past 2 years, our data shows that nationally, the proportion of women in every management category has increased. Whilst it's particularly encouraging but what is more encouraging is that the number of women being appointed and promoted has also increased. So that's fantastic news. In the past year, women made up 42% of all managerial appointments. Now, when you consider that only 37% of our managers are women, this figure of 42% really gives solid indication that things are definitely heading in the right direction. The area where we aren't seeing any change, though, is in industrial and occupational segregation across the workforce. The truth is, most Australians do not know what it is like to work in a gender-balanced industry. Our data shows that nationally, 6 out of every 10 employees work in an industry dominated by one gender. Across Australia, men tend to work in male-dominated environments like workshops, mine sites, trading floors. Women are more likely to work in the care services, schools, admin or HR. This level of workplace segregation across the Australian economy is not conducive to the diverse and inclusive workplaces that support innovation and healthy cultures. Challenging these stereotypes is a job for every single one of us. I think what worries me most about our data this year is that on current trends, this segregation and all the issues associated with it look to persist. Our data shows that in the last 12 months, male graduates are still overwhelmingly entering male-dominated industries, and likewise for female graduates. For example, 9 out of 10 graduates entering healthcare and social assistance in Australia are women. Only 2 out of 10 graduates are entering the construction industry in Australia are women. This segregation doesn't only stop people from pursuing satisfying careers, it also hinders the economic growth of our nation at a time when we need it most. By now, the business case for equality is well established. There is an identifiable link between equality and better business performance. Some industries recognise this, and we're seeing great initiatives to attract more women into scientific and technical roles, which is absolutely fantastic. But we also need to encourage men into female-dominated jobs and roles, such as nursing and caring. We need greater movement between the male and female worlds of work, and to achieve that, we need to address the way we often treat employees differently in a workplace based on their gender, men included. Traditionally, workplace cultures have not encouraged nor supported men to work flexibly. Although research consistently shows that men want to work flexibly at work, women are 3 times as likely as men to work part-time or flexibly. Research from the Queensland University of Technology shows that women are more likely than men to ask for flexible work arrangements, but when men do ask, they are twice as likely to be rejected. What is good, though, that our data is showing that 63% of all Australian employers now have a flexible working policy in place. However, I really question whether all employees in those organisations, especially the men, are being given real permission to use these flex arrangements. And I suspect that's not the case. Too often, there seems to me to be a disconnect between a flexible working policy that's launched with huge fanfare across an organisation and the employee's actual lived experience. It is still unusual for a man in Australia to be granted a compressed working week so that he can care for his ageing parents or his 2-year-old child, or to even have the confidence to ask for it. Encouraging men to work flexibly not only enables them to savour the joys of parenthood, but it would also help women participate more fully in the workforce. This is because our data shows that women are more likely to work, as I've said before, in part-time or casual roles. Our data shows that nationally only 6% of manager roles are worked part-time. Because of this, it's extraordinarily difficult for women to get a senior or managerial role. As a result, to access flexibility, women are often taking more junior roles and are becoming sidelined for promotions as a result. So we really do need to get more men working flexibly, to change these cultural norms about what being a manager really looks like. So this is where we find ourselves today, with a growing body of evidence, some promising trends, but clearly much more to do, because things really are going very slowly. The good news is that employers are stepping up, and we are seeing them challenge some of the norms in greater numbers. And the best example of this is that in the 3 years since the agency was established, reporting on our gender equality indicators has become business as usual for participating employers. I know that the whole process of reporting into us is burdensome, and believe me, my team and I are working constantly and consistently to improve that. But the fact that the overwhelming majority of organisations report to us without complaint and with a positive spirit, I think speaks volumes about our shared goals and our mood for change. Today, I want to take the opportunity to acknowledge and thank each and every one of you for the effort and the time and the diligence you show in reporting to us every year. Your adoption of our reporting process is building the library of evidence and knowledge we need to create change towards gender equality. I'm particularly happy that we can also help you through our competitor analysis benchmark reports that are available actually from today for your organisation to download. These reports provide a confidential, detailed analysis of each employer's gender equality progress compared with their peers. So we take your data and we compare it with your peers across your industry and also other industries with organisations of like sizes. They are, and I know from having spoken to employers, they are a very valuable tool that will enable you to help guide your journey towards gender equality for your organisations. I'd like to take a moment just now to highlight data about an industry that many of you in the audience work in, and in fact are on our panel today, and that is professional services. Professional services has often struggled with gender equality because of the perception of long hours, urgent turnaround times, and demanding clients, and that is considered to be incompatible with initiatives like flexible working. And of course, there is the problem that partnerships have historically been exemplified by the concept of the old boys' club or jobs for boys. Across the sector today, our data shows that although 42% of staff in professional services are women, only 11% in this sector are CEOs. The stark disparity between those two numbers just shows the scale of the changes that the sector still faces and the job you have ahead of you. But our data also this year shows some positive signs for change. For example, in the last 12 months, our data shows that nationally there has been a 14 percentage point increase in female general managers in the legal services area. But women are still only 5% of CEOs in the legal industry. But this improvement, I must say, at the lower levels is very, very encouraging. Let's turn our focus now to businesses headquartered in New South Wales. Here too, we've seen some improvements. New South Wales provides the agency with the biggest proportion of our reporting organisations, which is not surprising considering that Sydney is the head office capital of Australia, and that's coming from a Melbourne girl. So if we look at the key figures, the results aren't that different to the country as a whole. Women in New South Wales face a pay gap of 22.3%, and just 16% of CEOs in New South Wales are women. However, New South Wales businesses are significantly better at taking action on gender equality. So more New South Wales companies have done a gender pay gap analysis than any other state, the figure sitting at 30.3%. But that's still less than a third. And if you don't do a pay gap analysis, you don't know what your pay gap is. So it's the old story, you don't know what you don't know. So I would encourage everyone out there in every organisation to do a pay gap analysis so that you know exactly what the position is in your organisation. You can find out where your hotspots are, and then you can take action to address it and actually close that gap. Because I firmly believe that in closing the gender pay gap, we will be so far down the track of gender equality in Australia, the rest will just come reasonably simply. The other thing about New South Wales is that organisations who are headquartered here are also more likely to have a flexible working policy or strategy in place at 66%. So that's great. That's a really good figure. But what is most encouraging of all is that 3 out of 4 New South Wales employers who report into us have a gender equality policy or strategy in place. We just have to make sure that they are implementing that gender equality policy or strategy. And that figure, the figure is actually much better than the national average of about 70%. To finish, I want to give a shout out to some special guests in the audience today, and I'm not sure where they are, but Sue Gloria and Sunny. They're students from a local Sydney high school, Blackwattle Bay. Now, where are they? They're over there. Hi girls, how are you? I'm often asked about the prospects of young women entering the workforce today, and I'm asked, will things be different for them? Clearly, there's much that we need to improve before both Sue Gloria and Sunny can progress through the workforce at the same pace as their male students that work alongside them. But despite this, I'm really hopeful. The data does tell us that change is happening. I believe the pace of that change will pick up when employees start getting the data for themselves and start asking their employers some simple questions. Have we done a pay gap analysis in this organisation? Do women and men in this organisation have the same access to flexibility and caring provisions? And what are we doing generally as an organisation to support gender equality? 3 great questions that employees can ask, and 3 great questions that employers can step up and answer. On our website right now, we have free public reports that you can download on every company that reports to us. The reports include information on exactly what each employer is doing to improve gender equality. My hope is that employees across Australia will download those reports and feel empowered to ask, if not one, all of those questions. I also hope that after coming here today, Sunny and Sue Gloria will go back to their high school and think more broadly about your career options. Think about IT. Think about engineering. Think about medical technology. Think about those careers that have traditionally been the ones that the boys have gone into. Having worked in mining for many, many years, it's a fantastic industry to work in and terribly exciting. And I have to tell you that BHP's orange overalls really suit me. And there's nothing better than getting underground and having a look at what goes on. So think about that and encourage your mates at school who are male to think about some of those non-traditional male roles for them as well. So I'd like to think that by the time Sue Gloria and Sunny graduate from university, that gender segregation figures will start looking better, that the pay gap will have dropped at least 10 percentage points, and that all of us will become more used to working in gender equal industries. Thank you.